into Plan B. We're trained professionals, especially me. Right there, Dave.
You got it.
You got it. So I actually had a blast talking to Dave last time we were actually talking. We talked about a lot of things. A lot has changed in some ways, and a lot's still the same. Yeah. He's still a kick-ass teacher making comics, and I'm a freelance writer, podcaster, something or other. So seems legit, or something to that effect.
Yeah, we'll take it.
We'll take it. Totally. Yeah. How's life how's life treating you, man?
Going pretty good here. The school year started off pretty well. We're going strong. Very few cases of quarantining and things like that because of all the issues. But we're doing pretty good here. All said and done. Kids are doing great. Wife's doing great. How are you doing?
So I went across the country.
Nice.
I'm currently in Canmore, Alberta. Probably at some point we'll settle. I'm just gonna bring something cool because I got to do something I haven't done in 2 years today. I haven't been able to do something in 2 years, and that is I actually got to go to a comic shop today for the first time in like 2 years.
Nice.
Yeah. So
they're not open at all where you are.
Well, so this is what happened, right? I was in Vancouver and I was going to the comic shop there, and then I ended up going to Windsor, Ontario. But in the pandemic, it's kind of hard to connect to people right when you start because everything's locked down.
Sure.
And then we were the one province that there was a point in time we couldn't physically go to a store and buy underwear and socks. So there's just no way around it. It was weird and a little crazy. Like not like, so I was getting my comics actually through Calgary, Alberta. Another Dimension Comics is a comic shop that when I was living in Calgary the first and second time, this will be my third time in Alberta. They've been good to me. Like they've been really, really good to me. And I was just, again, especially during a hard time, it's important to support your friends. It just is. So my first time in Calgary was today, 2 years almost to the day I left Calgary. I left before the pandemic started. So it was my first time back. And I had to go. Like there's literally a picture of me at the outside door of Another Dimension Comics going, okay, I have to do this because it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
Right. So I went. I got the Last Ronin #4 today. Life is good.
Awesome.
Yeah.
You've been waiting for a while for that one, right? Didn't that come out a while ago?
Well, it came out, I think, early October because it was one later, but I could tell by my pile where like in order to release this because the bottom of the pile was the stuff that's been there a while. And so it was closer to the top than to the bottom. So it wasn't that long ago, but yeah, hold on a second here. I just got to do this. I got to do this once because that's a sweet book.
It's a good cover book. Yeah.
Yeah.
I just took my wife and kids to Salem, Massachusetts.
Okay.
For kind of like a pre-Halloween destination thing, and I'd never been before, and love all the history of the Salem witch trials, and there's just the oldness of it. My kids are big fans of the movie Hocus Pocus.
Okay.
So they filmed a couple things from Hocus Pocus in Salem right there. So the kids loved it. It was, first of all, amazing, very crowded. So we were a little worried. Like there were parts where we're like, there's a lot of people.
Oh yeah,
around here. And so we started going out to the outskirts but found a comic book shop in Salem that was amazing. I wish I could remember. I wish I could give them a shout out. I can't remember the name right now, but it's right there in the middle of downtown Salem. So if anybody ever going around in the New England area and find themselves in Salem, Massachusetts, look for a comic book shop there. It's amazing. It's right by. It's probably about 3 or 4 buildings down from the Witch Museum right there. It was awesome. I loved it. I love going into, and now that my kids are older and my wife's a little more lenient about it, going to find a good comic book shop when we go to different places is always fun for me. It was awesome.
Yeah. No, it's like so. And by the way, we're doing this because we're both big comic geeks in different ways. I haven't made a comic completely written and illustrated by yours truly yet. And Dave here is quietly, he has a run that actually rivals some mainstream books at this point.
Oh, wow. Yeah, working on issue 17 of my ongoing. I'm still calling it ongoing. I guess technically it's more of a maxi series at this point. I'm going for 50 issues. And I'm working on right behind me. You can see issue 17.
Yeah.
Going strong, cleaning up the inks there and trying to get panels all sorted out and everything. But I'm going strong. I think I'm going to be able to make it before the end of October to get issue 17
Sweet.
out. So doing really well. Just had our trade of the last 4 one-shots that we put out. The trade came out a couple weeks ago, and then I kind of re-released it again just for people who missed it the first time to be able to check it out. Black and white one-shots, different genres. And I think the stories came out really good. There's some kind of something for everybody. There's a slasher story in there. There is a superhero story that I think is a little bit different than what we usually see in superhero comics nowadays. There's a mystery noir in there, and then there's a alien sci-fi thriller called
Nice.
Aliens Do My Homework in there. So it's got a little something for everybody. So if anybody out there wants a cool trade of 4 cool one-shots, don't need anything, don't need to know anything going in, just cool stories, give it a shot.
I might just do a shut up and take my money when this is over. Who knows,
Awesome.
right? Yeah, maybe. Shut up and take my money. Might have to be an ebook, though, because shipping is a bitch. But besides that, yeah, crossing that board, that magic line is a weird, like, terrible thing because it's like, if it wasn't for that, like, my dollar is terrible. So, I mean, we're both kind of laughing a little bit. Mine's to spare. Yours is, it's Canadian money. I mean, what are you going to do? Right?
I feel real bad. Can I tell you a story that probably doesn't make me sound too good? So my wife and I love Canada. I love going up to Canada. Been multiple times. Took the kids. Niagara Falls. A bunch of amusement parks and stuff up there. Love it. Been to a few comic book conventions in Canada, and just really enjoy every time we're up there. But usually we pay with like debit card or credit card or whatever it is. Don't really deal with cash much up there. So we were at a really cool amusement park. I wish I could remember. I think I want to call it Wonderland.
Canada's Wonderland, Toronto,
Kansas,
Ontario.
Okay. Yeah, and it was great. We loved it. But great. It had like animal park and everything. It was perfect for the kids. They had an aquarium there. It was great. We loved it. So went to get something. I think it was food we were getting for the kids at one of the vendors out there. And I didn't have exact change. I had American currency. So I handed him, the couple bucks to be able to do it, and he handed me back the coins. And it took me a second to remember that it was Canadian money. I'm like, what? Wait, what's? Oh, I'm in Canada. Oh, okay, great. And I put it in my pocket and moved on with my day. I was like, ugh. Sometimes I'm not smart. It was Canadian money. Thank you very much, sir. Have a great day.
Now, do you want to hear a sad but true fact? Our toonie looks like a New Zealand dollar piece too. The only difference is literally. I can't remember. Let's see if I can point it. Yes, I'm pulling out Canadian money, ladies and gentlemen. Don't make fun of me too much. But as you can see, there's like a little piece in the middle there. So the New Zealand piece is built the exact same way. The only difference, and even has the Queen's head on one side. I forget what they have on the other side. It's not our wonderful bear beaver thingamaboober. It's something else. But it's like I looked at it, it's like, it's a bit of a conspiracy theory to go to the one world currencies thing, but when you do see a New Zealand piece and the Canadian piece looking exactly like for just a minute, you go,
Yeah.
It's like
all the way on the other side of the world and just that close to each other.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's just like, we're not that different. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing.
The world gets bigger and smaller every day, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. I will say this is the one thing I do love about your money. Bills feel so lighter in the pocket. Like there are parts about it. There are parts about your money I hate, but I do love that you still use dollar bills. I actually still love that. Some people are going to go, but it's resource. Here's the thing. I know it's more resource heavy, but I like the fact that you can't hear me coming a mile away if I have too much change.
Yeah. It's like a cat bell. Yeah, exactly. Coins in your pocket. Yeah.
So
the paper money has its pros and cons, but yeah, I'll agree that that's a good one. You don't have to be a investor to carry around too much money.
Yeah, that's the pro. And there are some cons, but that's the pro. Like I said, I just made the decision to come back out here for I think again, not to sound all doom and gloom. I do think we're headed for a bit of a shit show with some things that are going on. And I just figured, where can I be the most help? It's like one of those weird things you kind of feel. I don't know where are you in terms of religious, whether you're religious, non-religious, but there's that whole concept that you kind of feel called or drawn to a place for
Sure.
somehow, some way.
Sure.
And I kind of just felt like in this time I could be the most help where I'm at.
Yeah.
Good, bad, or indifferent. Like like I might be crazy, but I don't think there's anyone sane in the world. So I mean, one thing is as good as another. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm a big proponent of go with your gut. So if you're comfortable where you are, stay there.
Yeah, that's kind
Simple
of
as
it.
that for
Well,
me.
I'm going to be for a while, I think, regardless. But yeah.
Yeah.
But no, it's just one of those. It's one of those things where you make the decision, like you just in a time like this, you guys like, where do you feel like you can stand, do the most good, help people, be there for people you really care about,
Yeah.
and also just I didn't want to stick around. As much as I love my family, I just couldn't. Windsor, Ontario, for me was like going back 20 years into my past. Like once upon a time, it was a great place for me, but now it was like I don't fit here anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I get that 100%. When I grew up in Ohio, and when I moved down to Florida, my wife and I met fairly quickly. Got married a couple years into it, had 2 kids, and didn't have any family down in Florida. And we both had great jobs that we really enjoyed, but it wasn't quite enough to keep us there. So we were flipping the coin on to move back to Ohio or move to where my wife grew up in upstate New York. And I just knew that I couldn't move back to Ohio. I just knew I couldn't. It'd be like walking backwards. You know what I mean? It'd be like going backwards.
And sometimes you can pick up stuff coming backwards. Like it was good for me to go back. I learned an awful lot about freelancing, ironically enough, because it was just one of those situations where I had the opportunity to learn, and I will be always grateful for my family, all my family, for helping me do that. It was sorely needed, and I got to do it. And yeah, so you get to that one, so the first, I maybe I don't know if this is how you feel like when you got into comics. Like the first time you got into it, you were like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. Help.
I say it at least once a day.
Yeah. Whole of our secret. Actually, when you get right down to it, it's the whole of our secret.
I think most people at this point are like, I have no idea what's going on, but I'm just going to keep moving forward.
That's all you can do, really. At the end of the day, it's like, do you think this is how the world works? You know what? Honestly, I'm just happy I can put pants on at this point in my life. That's.
I got out of bed.
Yep. That's it. I don't need to worry about anything else right now. Your standards drop when you get older, ladies and gentlemen. Your standards drop.
When you were in your teens, you're like, I'm going to take over the world. And when you're 46, like I am, it's did I get out of bed? I took a shower today. I'm good. I won. I'm a winner.
You're just happier with less. Life has kicked your ass a little bit. You're like, see, you can still have world domination goals in your 40s, right? You can.
Yeah.
But and I have some. I'm not going to say I've gotten rid of everything I've wanted to do. I'm openly crazy. I totally admit that. Yeah. But I also life has kicked my ass a little bit. I've led with my face a few times too many. In some situations, I think we all do at some point in our lives. That clocked a few times.
Yeah. That's awesome. Yeah, I love that.
After a while, you're like, and you realize this at some point in your life. The big stuff comes from little things. It doesn't come from like giant leaps. I mean, it's exhausting. It's a lot like work. And when you're younger, you have the energy to do that. When you get a little older, you realize I can still do it.
Yeah.
But I don't want
But I'm going to go in like this first.
Yeah. Yeah.
But okay. Oh, okay. We're good.
Yeah, we're good. But taking a step's like, I can take a step. I can take another step. Maybe I'll take 2 steps in the day.
Yeah.
And, so you take those 2 steps in a day, and that's good. You're going for it. Like I was talking to somebody today because they're trying to like launch magazines and stuff like that. And I'm like, the secret isn't like to make giant leaps or put everything out at once or all that stuff. It's just be steady, like just steadily produce. If you can do that, right, people will, respect that. They'll see that, and then they'll actually trust you when you say you'll get shit done.
Yeah. Keep moving forward, learn from mistakes. That's it. What's the old I was just watching the other day, there's a Captain Cold thing going around from The Flash where he said there's 4 things you need to know. Have a plan, execute the plan. When the plan goes wrong, throw away the plan.
Well, I listen to sometimes Jocko Willink's podcasts,
Hmm.
and the last one was dealing with the whole concept of military incompetence.
Wow.
And it was interesting because it's human psychology and how it's led to some of the biggest military disasters in history,
Hmm.
where human psychology can get in the way of success. One of the things I think, and I think the best lesson I learned from that is as a species we tend to fall in love with outcomes, not necessarily what we should be falling in love with, which is the work itself.
Exactly.
Because that you can control.
Yeah.
Right? New information comes all the time. Life can say, "Ha, you're not going that way anymore," and you just gotta kind of go with it. And you just sometimes you're like, "Oh, okay," and sometimes you're like, "Really? Like right now? Could you let me have this first?" Right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
but the thing is, and here's what I've noticed is when we fall in love or have an outcome we expect and believe,
Hmm.
we become very resistant in information that contradicts that.
Yeah.
Right. And
Yeah.
that's when mistakes and that's when we make foolish decisions.
Hmm.
And that's when catastrophe can happen.
Hmm.
Right. And
Yeah.
so what I've learned a little bit as I've gotten older is I really can't control the result.
Hmm.
I just shouldn't fall in love with it. I just go, okay, if it works, awesome. If it goes sideways, you kind of expect it to go sideways
Yeah.
anyway. But you're
Adjust.
not
Yeah.
you're not overloaded or bombarded with that wasn't supposed to happen, right?
Hmm.
Because that fucks people hard.
Yeah.
You're right. That fucks people really hard up. Instead of just doing that, you'd be like, okay, did it work? Yes.
Hmm.
Or no, it didn't work. And hopefully you have the sense not to repeat the insanity.
Hmm.
Hopefully.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
In some cases.
Yeah.
Again, we're all a little batshit crazy. We have to acknowledge that little part of
Mhm.
human psyche. But when you come right down to it, like it's most of the biggest mistakes in your life you're probably going to make has to do with falling in love with those outcomes.
Mhm.
If you can separate yourself from the outcome,
Mhm.
you again, you can still be rattled. Don't get me wrong. It happens to us all,
Mhm. Mhm.
but it's far less likely to happen.
Yeah. I agree that the idea of what's the phrase? Putting the cart before the horse.
Yeah.
Expecting, or expecting, thinking that it's all going to go 100%, and then at the end, I'm going to have this thing that I have in my brain is the greatest thing in the world, or whatever it is. But when something stops that forward momentum of what you think is supposed to happen every single time, it can shut you down. It can shut
Yeah.
you down. So that bend not break attitude, I think, is always what I've got anyway, to be able to keep going. Oh, well, that didn't work out, but let's learn from what just happened and let's keep moving forward.
Yeah. First off, hey Doris, welcome to the show. I hope you're doing well. Nice to see you. This is Dave. I don't know if you two have met, but
Doris?
yeah. So Dave's cool. He's a comic writer and awesome, and we're probably going to talk. So here's an interesting thing. What's your split in terms of like Kickstarter versus mainstream books right now?
I'll be honest with you. I stick right now pretty much with indie stuff. If I do like if I go to a comic book shop, I'll pick up some more. So like I picked up a whole run of the old Blue Beetle, the
Ooh,
original
which
run of
one?
Blue Beetle. The very first one. I think I got up to issue 24.
That's sweet.
And it was something I'm like, I love Blue Beetle. You can see on the back of the wall, I've got Blue Beetle sitting up here ready to go. But he's one of my favorites superheroes. So when I do pick up, it tends to be back issues that I've read some of, but not all of, that kind of stuff with mainstream stuff. I haven't really picked up an individual comic book from the big boys, I'd say in 10 years. But I do pick up trades. So I'll pick up a trade from the big boys from time to time just to kind of keep up with what's going on. What I really try to do is when I'm at conventions or when I'm riding the information superhighway and I see somebody that's got a great independent book out that looks really good and the story looks good to me, I'll do my best to be able to try to get a copy of it, to support indie comics, and because I want to just continue to see what's out there, to continue to see some of the great stories that indie creators are putting out. I think that at this point, the mainstream stuff, is it for me is getting very oversaturated. Does that make sense? I wouldn't even say it's getting political because comic books have always been political, and I try to stay away from the comments on stuff that's happening
I
and story. I try to stay away. You can't help but see it if you're on the internet,
so
unfortunately.
do you want just to
Uh,
do you want to just address the big elephant in the room,
oh
big
yeah,
mouse
let's
in
do
the
it.
room?
Yeah, let's talk
Let's
about it.
do it. So I think it's Jonathan Kent coming out as bisexual.
Yeah,
Is that the big is that the like
lots of
okay.
Superman stuff. Truth, justice, and a better tomorrow or better future,
Yeah.
better tomorrow,
Yeah.
better future,
Something
something
like
like
that.
that.
Yeah.
True
I
justice, and we'll say better tomorrow.
yeah.
I'm pretty sure that's what it is.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, for me, any news about Superman on mainstream media is great, because it means that people are talking about it. So that's a positive for me right out the gate to be able to see Superman on my news feed, and not be in a comic book forum or in a comic book news cast thing. For me, is always a plus, because it means that people have forgotten Superman. I think that the Jonathan Kent coming out by doesn't really bother me. People are saying, "Well, that's not Superman." He's not Superman.
No.
He's Superman's son. Yeah.
Yeah.
So to be able to have that character, um, include more people, I don't think is a bad thing. I don't care if Jonathan Kent is bi or not. I don't. It's none of my business, other than the fact that he's going to be in stories that I'm reading.
Yeah.
And these are things that you would see from real people in the real world. Why wouldn't we see it in comic books also? And quite honestly, to be even more honest, if and people say, why don't we create new characters, to make them bisexual or trans or whatever they want to do with these characters, then it wouldn't get as much attention, right? And the character probably wouldn't last as long,
Well,
right? For
see,
on some level, um,
so I think that argument loses its point with Jonathan in specifically.
mhm,
So I'm of so Jonathan Kent, the character, I'm of two minds. I really enjoyed the Super Son stuff.
yeah,
And I really think him as a kid with Damien, there is a lot more you can do with
yeah.
that. And I wish
They grew
DC
him up
doesn't
real
have
fast. They grew him
what?
up real fast.
They grew up real fast.
Yeah.
I think here's the thing. I think DC. See, I think there's like from like there's like a young. Just we're gonna go Jonathan Kent like this level. Then we're gonna talk about the bisexual stuff. On this level, I think Marvel should always have an unbeatable Squirrel Girl, and DC should always have a Super Sons. That's just my opinion because
Mhm.
if I'm trying to bring a kid into comics, those are two very viable,
Mm,
very great. Like
yeah,
you could give Super Sons to a kid. You can
yeah.
give Unbeatable Squirrel Girl to a kid.
Mm,
You can do that with Miss Marvel too. Like I like just like straight up, but Miss Marvel kind of is almost a slightly more mature
yeah,
run.
yeah.
So I just think from y- mainstream comics, I think are like bigger issue. Mainstream comics has recognized that they have become a
Mm,
complete niche, and because of that, I just think that we are. I think they've given up on that, and it's a
mm,
shame because I do think like that's my opinion. I think they did grow him up too fast.
yeah.
Now, as far as the bisexual stuff goes, here's the thing: of all the quote unquote new characters, he is a new character,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
I rather that. Um, I would rather that than say, as much again. Alan Scott's just an old character, so I mean, just I feel like tacking in on something like that. John's a new character you could do that with. It
Mm,
doesn't clash with any old continuity at all. It fits with that the character's always kind of been. You have the ability to do that, and it doesn't really take anything away. It's a character you can add to that, and I don't feel it does anything terrible to the character.
yeah. I
So
100% agree. I think with a like I was saying, when a new character was a character not connected to something as big as a super family. Does that make
yeah,
sense? Yeah,
but I don't think, like, to be perfectly honest with you, I'm okay with that. Right?
sure.
It
Yeah,
doesn't do, like, anything. He is like, I would rather them do it with a newer character, because you don't have all that continuity to play with. But
yeah,
that said, he is a new character. You can do this with him.
sure.
Why not? Right? Why not?
So in the same alleyway, Tim Drake came
Yeah.
out as bi a couple months ago, also.
Yeah.
Right, and I think I saw somebody post something about having both characters come out as bi so close together, like takes away from the impact of it. And on some level, I get from a marketing standpoint, I get that. But if you see them as just two people, then it kind of negates that argument,
I
right?
so I'm like, I'm happy it's a headline, and I'm unhappy it's a headline.
Hmm.
Because I'm happy it's a headline because, okay, hey, it draws more attention to books.
Yeah.
I'm unhappy as a headline because it still shouldn't be a publicity. Again, I live in
Hmm.
Canada. At this point, I don't really care who you sleep with. It's not
Yeah.
my like, seriously,
Hmm.
if it's not me, I don't care. I mean, that sounds like, maybe that
Yeah.
sounds like a very, very simple approach, but
No, that's perfect. Yeah, I mean,
yeah.
if it's Tim Drake is my favorite Robin. I've read Tim Drake since the beginning, since his first miniseries when he, was it with uh, he came in not funeral for a friend. What was it?
Oh, geez.
His
I
very first
Right
where he
after
figured out
Jason's death, right after Jason's death, it was right then.
family, death and family,
Yeah,
right? Yes,
yeah, it was right
really
there.
testing the knowledge there. But I thought he was great from the beginning, and to add this new layer to him, he's still young, he's still in continuity, still in his early 20s,
Yeah.
right? To me, um, it takes a character and just adds more layers of depth to him.
I'm not gonna lie, I miss the Red Robin run. It's still my favorite
Oh,
of it's
yeah,
my favorite Tim Drake run.
yeah,
I really thought, both Marcus Toe and Marcus Toe's run with him,
hmm,
and, Fabian Niska had a really, really good run. I forget who the writer was for the first 12 issues off the top of my head, but I think was the best. I loved the parallels with him and Batman. I
hmm,
really enjoyed that, where Tim was just like him, in some ways where he was better, in some
yeah,
ways where he was worse. I thought
yeah.
it was that was a good book. I feel like that run was cut too soon, and
Oh yeah,
that's my honest opinion.
sure,
Um, but no, it's like, I get that argument a little bit more with Tim Drake because he's been around for 30 years.
yeah.
I get that argument a little bit more, but even so, whatever. I mean, it's not outside his wheelhouse, right?
For me, like whether it's a character in a book or a real person in the real world, my question will always be: first of all, does it matter if you're not him, if you're not Tim, and does it change who he is?
Yeah.
The answer is no. It
So
doesn't
Doris,
change
why
who
are you
he
saying,
is.
oh, this hold on really quick. Why are you saying, oh, this topic? Right? Because it's just like, yeah, like I said, I'm Canadian. I've hit that point in my life where it's like, seriously, if it's not me, I really don't care. As long as you're happy and you're not hurting anybody.
Yeah,
Grand scheme of things, what the fuck do I care? Right?
it doesn't. It really doesn't matter. You know, what I mean,
Yeah.
that's I think for me, the bottom line is it doesn't matter. I don't care who people sleep with. It's none of
Yeah.
my business.
Yeah, exactly.
Unless you're actively trying to sleep with me or someone in my realm, and it's going to affect
And,
me somehow.
and even if it's in your realm, if they're a consenting adult, there's really not much you can say. You're just like,
Okay, yeah,
okay,
I'll agree with that. Sure.
it's just it. Like, this is just that's it.
Yeah.
If like I said, if I do when I have written characters that are a little bit more like bisexual, it's not something I'm going to openly put
Mhm.
out. It's not something I'm going to overtly try to point out. But if it does come up, I want it to feel like it's a normal thing,
Yeah,
right? Because that's what it should be.
it is. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right, Doris. That's fine. You're more than welcome to say whatever you want. It's all good. But I mean, it's just that this was the big comic book reveal this week. So we're just going there. We were just going to talk indie books for a while, because the other thing I really wanted to talk about was just simply the fact that I'm kind of with you in the sense that, so I read Green Lantern because I've been reading Green Lantern since I was 8 years old. I'm a junkie.
Sure.
And I love the current Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle stuff.
Nice.
And outside of that, I'm reading like 2 books. Oh, I mean, Harley Quinn. It just so happened one of my favorite like writers in mainstream comics is Stephanie Phillips. One of my favorite artists in comics is Riley Rossmo. And Lord knows they put them together in one book. I was like, I'm in. I'm just in.
Yeah.
They could have written anything. They could have written like a squirrel named Bob, and I would have been in. I was like, I'm in, right?
Squirrel named Bob. That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, it sounds fun.
Let's do that.
Great. Maybe we should just talk about that. Let's do a squirrel named Bob and just make him the biggest, meanest, toughest Western style squirrel in all the land. Just have him walk in and just kick some butt on some old ladies trying to stop him from getting some nuts. I don't know.
Nice.
Something was.
I think you convinced me.
Yeah, in.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Write it down before somebody forgets.
Okay. Okay. Done. So yeah, there you go, guys. I just made a comic book idea off the top of my head.
Nice.
And yeah, so it's like I'm good at this or something. I don't know. Yeah. But no, it's one of those situations where I realize that the best like mainstream publishing has become a niche. I think in comics it's more niche than publishing books. But books are going in the direction comics are. Like, I was thinking about this the other day. I don't know if I go with a mainstream publisher right away. There'd have to be a reason for me to go. And I'm not saying that like some braggadocious, egocentric, but I'm just looking at like, I can write a book. I can publish a book. I can market a book. And I'm going to be doing these things with like the publishing, not so much, but the marketing is going to be me, right? For more likelihood with a mainstream book. I have the option even now, like Kickstarter people are getting book deals, movie deals, are getting other franchise opportunities. So I'm looking at traditional publishing right now. And I am not sure that I just want to jump in there right away anymore. Don't get me wrong. I'm not against if someone wants to do it. I'm not against. I see why, and I'm not against it.
Yeah.
But strictly from a business standpoint, I can make any cool freaking book I want. It's a pain in the ass. I'm not going to sleep, but I don't sleep anyway. So what the hell? And
yeah.
Right. Yeah, it's just one of those situations where I just look at it and going, I love what Rob Maturi is doing with Nightwolf. What you're doing is really cool. There's lots of great books out there done by a lot of amazing. I love Rodney Fikes doing Roadkill Rampage. I think that's a great, fun little book. I think it's cool that Dustin Burnell is doing some fun stuff with Greed. I love the fact that Jim Noble found a niche no one's touching, and he's doing a great and these are just so many different books you're never going to see in a comic shop. Well, you might see in some comic shops. I think some comic shops are seeing which way that wind's blowing. Is like, I better get it on that gravy train if I want to stay in business, right? But yeah, I don't. Again, maybe you have an answer. I don't. Right? Because I can see the want, but I don't know if there's a need anymore. If that makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's, again, like we were talking about earlier, it's go with your gut. Whatever the individual thinks is going to be the right pick for them. Like when I create, I'm pretty much a one-man band. I have an editor that helps me out with stuff, and actually they made some comments to me today that were invaluable. So to be able to have a soundboard and be able to have somebody to be able to bounce ideas off and be able to say, hey, wait, hold on, maybe this is a better way to go is always a good way to go. But someone in my position who's pretty much a one-man band, I haven't run any Kickstarters or Indiegogo's or anything like that, just because I'm, like you said, I'm just sitting in my den and on my computer and on my drawing table, just drawing funny books and drawing action adventures and just kind of getting it done and telling stories that I know that I would enjoy, and hoping that somewhere along the way somebody enjoys them also. I think that every individual has a different goal. Whether it's I'm going to try to be the greatest comic book creator in the history of comic book creators, which is setting themselves up to fail probably on some level, or it's I'm just going to put out some cool books and let's see what happens. And if nothing happens, I'll just keep going and keep doing it because I enjoy it, or moderate amount of success or whatever it is. I think that it's always, for me again, it's always a go with your gut situation. If you're doing it for 10 years and you say, hey, I've put out all these books but I've never run a Kickstarter. Let's try a Kickstarter. Let's see what happens. And then you end up financing your next 20 books because of it. Great. Or your first Kickstarter doesn't reach its goal. That's okay. You learn from it. I think that in the whole process, especially young kids, I mean, could you imagine having this stuff 30 years ago? It would have been amazing to be able to have these kind of opportunities, to be able to create and write and draw and publish your own comic book just from the comfort of your own home, and to have that option, I think is invaluable. And if somebody wants to do it, they'll do it, and they'll find the way that works for them best. And if it's Kickstarters or it's just publishing it on your own and doing your best to get it out as quickly but quality as you can, there is for me there is no right answer. This is one of those things. There is no right answer. Go with your gut.
Yeah, no, I like. I just realized that because printing has become ridiculously cheap. I was talking to somebody on a Twitch stream last night about this. It's like, I don't know if I jump into it. Because this is what happened to me. I did a book last year called Alice Zero. I released it on just Amazon, and it got nominated for an award. And it occurred to me, like, regardless of whether I win it or not, doesn't matter. It got noticed, and it got nominated, and I didn't do anything but just put it out there. And thanks to everybody that noticed it and nominated it. My gratitude is very much there. But it made me realize something very valuable. I don't know. I can get awards. I can get a recognition on my own. I've already, again, because of my gift for this wonderfully big mouth of mine, I can meet and interact with all kinds of people in all kinds of different walks of life. So if I go somewhere down the road, say, hey, this Alice in Wonderland thing, I want to turn this into a game. Who do you know that can do it? And somebody somewhere would go to me and go, well, there's here. And I'll be like, and I can go, hey, how are you? And that kind of thing, right? And it sounds really silly when you think about it like that, but the truth is, it's the truth.
Yeah.
Right? We are a very interconnected world in the sense, like, again, me and you are having you're in upstate New York. I'm in Canmore, Alberta. Like that way, right? That's like thousands of miles apart. Like no joke. Yeah. And we covered the big elephant in the room. I've told terrible jokes that have made you laugh. It's almost like the only thing is if it was in person, we probably would be having either a cold beverage or water and be doing pretty much the same thing.
Yeah.
Right. There might, I think at this point, probably a high five or a hug might be involved when I say hi. But I mean, we'd be talking just like this, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think the one good thing that came out of all the weirdness of the last year and a half is being able to connect more like this. This kind of stuff might not have happened so much if cons were still around. I mean, all the virtual cons people were putting out, hey, let's just get on the internet, let's just talk to each other. And it's like you said, people who are thousands, hundreds, millions of miles away that never would have been able to connect before. And it's one of the positives that I think has happened. While face to face is always preferable, at least in my book it is.
Yeah.
Being able to have this option and be able to meet people that I knew I never would have met otherwise, I think is a powerful tool, a powerful thing to be able to do, powerful the way to be able to take a negative and turn it into a positive. So to be able to have so many more voices and so many more friendships and so many more people to be able to talk to, especially about something that I love, like comic books. We love like comic books is pretty awesome. So again, trying to find those positives out of things that are heartbreakingly negative is for me always a way to go.
Yeah, yeah, Doris, me too. Like, I think, like, okay, so the people I got to talk to, I never thought, like, again, meet you, very cool. Christina Z, I never would have met her any other way if I hadn't had it. That's a fucking good. We talked about kink and hockey. I never thought that would be like a thing. Mog Park and Rob Multuri, I will never look at Italian porn the same way ever again.
They know how to do it.
They do. Mog,
Or so I've heard. Or so I've heard.
Yeah. Just don't ask questions. Mog's the instigator. That's all I'm going to tell you. Mog is the instigator. Nice. I'm in trouble this Friday. Mog and An are coming to do drink and draw with me.
I saw.
I'm the adult.
That's gonna be fun. I think this might be a situation where there's no adult in the room. Yeah.
But I might be the closest thing.
Well.
I'm not. Both those ladies are more mature than me. I think An's actually more mature than both Mog and myself. If I were to actually line it up, it'd be An, Mog. Yeah, just watch it. It's literally the first 5 minutes. You will never look like it was. The joke is awesome, and also just the fact that I go talk to the dirtiest women I've ever talked to about sex are like 60-year-old romance writers. Nice. By far, like the dirtiest. Just awesome. The whole conversation just goes downhill from here. It was great. Awesome. And that's what I love about my show too. I can talk about this with literally everybody, and everybody just goes with it. It's like, fuck it, this is Josh, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Right. So, but no, I am going to have no control Friday, and I just know it. All I'm going to try to do is just like, okay, I'm going to try to keep them for at least an hour and a bit, and just draw and like. But here's the flip side of that. I'm drawing with Mark Park and Anvu. Like, wow.
Yeah.
It seems like we're really like it's a really dumb thing, but it's just like in one sense it's like, but surreal. It's like, why did I get here? And I'm like, I have a big mouth. There's a guy.
Yeah. And using it well, so keep. I can't wait to see the show on Friday. I'm gonna try my hardest to, with the kids and all their stuff they've got to do. I usually try to watch it a little, or usually get stuff a little later on. But I'm gonna try to watch it on Friday live.
And feel free to comment away as well. What I am going to start doing, I think, with the drink and draws is I'm going to make them also Facebook as well, so that way more people can watch those. Nice. Just the drink and draws, I think, just because they're a fun show, they're a different show, and from what I do. And everybody can jump in and come in and just have a good time. And I think that would be like, that'll be cool. And then every time I have someone actually, I'll ask you off the air. I won't put you on the spot right now. Love to
I'll do it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'll do it.
We'll just like, maybe next month sometime like right before Christmas. Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm in.
Yeah.
You convinced me.
Okay. That was very hard. That was very, very hard. Yeah, no, it's just, but no, like that's the thing about a time that's the great thing about a time like this. Doris, someone else I never would have met any other way. Rich Perota, and again talking about international, it's just like it's an amazing world if you let yourself just look at the magic of it, right?
Yeah.
I do think, like I said, personally, I think the next couple of years are still going to be kind of rough. I think we've gone a little crazy, and we're going to have to like uncrazy somehow, some way, a little bit.
We got to reel some people in. Reel them in.
I think everybody needs to be reeled in a little bit. Like something I said earlier, the love of the outcome thing. I think all of us need to have a little come to Jesus about that and go, you know what? Everybody needs to reevaluate that a little bit and kind of figure out where we want to go from here. That's my opinion.
I agree. We've lost a little kindness. We've lost a little empathy. I think that if everybody kind of sees from the other side and chooses kindness and chooses what can I, like you were saying, what can I do? What is the best thing that I can do to help? It might not be exactly what I want to do, but if it's helping one person, if it's helping 5 people in a year or whatever it is, let's do it. Let's do it. It's not going to change my life at all. Let's do that one small thing or whatever it is to be able to help as many people as we possibly can. And understand that this is not going to become Fahrenheit 451. It's not going to
I
become. It's
I
not going to become 1984. Everybody can relax. I think or it's not going to be a sci-fi, story where now there are robots hovering over all of our houses. Yeah, the thought police and all that stuff.
I don't think we're gonna go that far. However,
Mm,
I just so you want a little bit of deja vu, just a little bit though. Just here's like I decided to compare 1930, not 1940s Germany, but 1930s Germany to
mm,
now.
okay.
We do check a lot of those boxes, including the vaccine passport itself.
Mm,
The blockchain is made by IBM, who made the punch cards back in the 30s for Jews. So they're like, here's kind of how I like. Okay, this is my opinion. I think we have to find a way to put freedom back into this a little bit.
mm,
I'm not saying that there's a perfect solution here, but what I am saying is I'm looking at the results of some of the things we're trying to force to do, and I question in the law, even in the next few months or even next year,
mm,
if they were the right things to do. And I think and I'm and some of that I think is just we have again, it's that being in love with an outcome that I'm
mm,
not sure is actually the real outcome.
mm,
And so it's just one of those things where I've looked what's going on around the world, kind of just seeing some of the things I'm seeing, and my opinion, what should be done is probably in the minority. But also, I'm not coming from the place where it's all going to be Fahrenheit 451 or this and this. But I do worry. Government has a tendency to grab whatever power it grabs, it keeps. And I think at some point in this, that has to be pushed back.
mm,
If it's not, I'm not sure that's a normal any of us could be happy with. I'm
mm.
not saying it's Fahrenheit 451, but I don't want to be anywhere even in that vicinity. I would rather be kind of in more of a okay, let's make sure shit works.
Yeah.
Right? Let's make sure the shit actually works.
Mhm.
Then if it does work, let's figure out a way that works for everybody,
Yeah.
right? Figure
Yeah.
out some compromises here and there on some things.
Yeah.
And then we move on with the rest of our lives. I think going into the going mandates and laws being two separate things, I don't think is a good thing. I think, like I said, the passport is that could go very sideways if we
Mm,
let it. There are danger signs. That doesn't mean we're going to go down that darkest path either, though. It just means that we should be cognizant of what we're doing right now and
mhm.
recognizing that the outcome we want may not be what it is. Does that make sense? Am
Yeah.
I
No, yeah, it makes 100%. I think that one of the biggest problems with whatever ism or ideology or whatever it is on either side of it,
mhm.
of the political realm, or really just about any aspect of life, is that people tend to grasp onto their thing, which is normal,
Yeah.
100% normal, and they start thinking about their thing being the thing that everybody else should be, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So if you have one group of people who say, "Well, this is our thing, so we want you to do our thing also," and that other group of people says, "Well, that's not our thing. We want to continue doing our thing." No, 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 no. You have to do our thing because we said so, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Does that make sense? To where people, I'll give you an example. Not any particular examples, but I'll try to make it as broad as I
Yeah,
possibly can.
yeah, because we don't want to get into the deep dark holes of this either.
Exactly.
So yeah.
Small government.
Mhm.
I think that small government is a good idea. But then you have people who say, I want smaller government, but then have no problem with our government making laws about individual choices. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? So
Yes.
that's where we're kind of where they
So
don't quite see the hypocrisy of what they're saying, and it's on both sides do it
yep.
on some level. So it's those kind of little decisions, like people want their thing to be everybody's thing, and
Yeah.
that's not the way to be. Sorry, I'm about to cough, Joshua.
No, no, it's cough.
Excuse me.
No, like it, but I mean, again, I'm not saying there can't be a compromise because again, I think at the end of the day, everybody does want the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just again, everybody sees different ways of how to get there. And
Yeah.
that's the thing. There are different ways on how to get there.
Yep.
My
There's
way
always.
isn't necessarily the right way because guess what? I'm a dude with a big mouth with a podcast. What the fuck do I know? Right? But
Yeah.
at the same time, like on the flip side, I'm not blind to what's going on in the rest of the world either. I'm
Yep.
not sure that's where we want to go.
Sure.
So and so it's one of those things where um like maybe we should all have a little pause and go, okay, what do we really want here? Because the only because I'm looking at what did happen in New York earlier last month. I'm looking at what just happened here and it's starting to happen here in Canada, and I'm thinking I don't think any good comes from that.
Mm.
So and that's me. I can understand why it was done to some extent,
Mm.
but still, I don't think anything good's going to come from this.
Mm.
So, did we do the right thing? I'm going to say no. Some people would say yes, but it's like, okay, but did we really think it through? Right? And
Yeah.
that's where I'm at on that. Like it's because again, if something did happen right now, we kind of hooped ourselves.
Yeah. I think one of the problems is that also in these situations, we have to remember that anybody that makes up government is just people like
Yeah.
us, no
Oh, absolutely.
smarter, no better than us. We tend to put politicians on a bit of a pedestal, um, um, for the most part, on some level, acting like that they have all the answers or they are all knowing, all seeing, and they're not. They're people like us, and in most cases, I would bet they're not any smarter than the average person.
Mhm.
They might have they might be charismatic. They might be a doctor or a lawyer or even just have a GED. Okay, and then they hit all the notes that their region wanted to hit, and that's fine. But I think that especially in times like right now where it is an emergency, right? That going along is never 100% a good idea, but standing back and being patient is always a good idea also, until it's time to not be patient. You know what I
Well,
mean? Like it's where you go, okay, now stop, because what you're doing, we understand what your thought process is, but it starts starting to not make any sense.
Well, there's again, it's falling in love with an outcome. Like I mentioned this at the very
Yeah,
beginning,
yeah,
right? It's falling in love with an outcome. Again, I've looked what's going on around the world, so I have an idea. I think I know where it's going just based on what's happened elsewhere.
yeah.
So my thing would be maybe we should think about this because
Mm-hmm.
do we really want to go down that road? Because I don't see what's different about us, right? And
I
that's
think
and
it,
that's that's kind of how I see it. On the
yeah,
same token, that's not saying I wouldn't want to work with a solution. I just want to understand where we're going, where we're
sure,
trying to go, and understand the process. A little transparency would go a long way.
yeah. I agree, and I think that that's one of the problems. I think that there are two problems: transparency. I
Mhm,
100% agree. And communication.
mhm,
When all this started, the communication about what was happening was poor. And I think they didn't have a lot of transparency because the people in charge, didn't really know either. So when people, scientists and doctors who are coming out and saying this is what we want to do, and then a month later, oh wait, now we want to do it this way because it kind of shows that this is a better way to do it. And then a month later, oh, we're kind of getting some new information here, so now we're going to do it this way because it shows that it's a little helpful to do it this way. Whatever the issue is, I think that a big problem is that people were seeing the scientific method was something that we had not dealt with in 100 years as a race of people. Um, and seeing that scientific method play out in real time is difficult for people because they start to think, because they don't understand the process, start to think, well, they don't know what they're talking about. They change it every week. They're changing it every week because they get new information all the time. It's the same thing with weather. Like you hear people say it all the time. The weather, oh, what's the weather? What the weather meteorologists say the weather? Oh, they don't know what they're talking about. They're never right, because weather is a constantly changing. I would not want that job.
Actually, if I'm in Phoenix,
What?
Arizona, I want that job. You're almost always right.
Yeah,
You're
okay.
almost
When
always
there's
right.
barely any weather, sure, okay.
Yeah, okay.
But in a
I
place that has constant weather changes and weather patterns, that it's constantly changing. They could from an hour, from within the span of an hour, they could think, oh, it's coming right through us. Oh, it went south of us, so we're not getting that rain. We're not
the
getting that snowstorm,
the
whatever it
other
is
the
that we thought we were going to get. It's constantly changing, and for people to see that process really quite honestly in the last year and a half in real time is very difficult for people to hear it and understand that that's the process and trust it, because they don't usually they want people to know the answer. This is the answer, do this thing, it's not going to change. That's the bottom line, and that's really just not the way the world works, right?
I'm going to slightly push back on this, but
Okay,
only
yeah, please.
slightly. Here's my pushback. The problem is your media. I don't think it's so much the scientific method, but
Mhm.
okay, there is a certain doctor, we won't mention his name. He has been on the air pretty much since the whole pandemic has begun. He's not credible anymore. Some of the things he has said has pretty much shot any credibility everybody else has had because he's the
Mhm.
one in charge.
Mhm.
My opinion. That's just my opinion. It's not scientific method. It's the fact that, because again, I've been quietly just following scientific reports from other parts of the world. Things do change all the time, but the thing is, when I look at a scientific report, they will explain what they did, how they did it, to what measurements they did it. I have a clear idea of what they tried to do,
Yeah.
right? I know what they tried to do. Sometimes it doesn't work out the way they think it's going to work out, but at least I can see the process of thought.
Yeah.
Your media, actually the media in general, not just your media, my media too, they are they're very good at selling a story.
Mhm.
I'm not really sure they're good at selling transparency anymore. And
Yeah.
on top of that, in all fairness to anyone, like I tend to doubt, I'm a skeptical when it comes to government because there's a history of earned mistrust.
Yeah.
So like that's a double problem. Now, a solution that could have been done at the beginning, I'm not sure could be done now, would have been to put somebody, not that guy, to that doesn't seem to actually be in the government, explain what's going on, what they tried, admit to when they failed, because
Yeah.
that would also go a long way. Hey, listen, if you fuck up and you tell me you're fucking up, I'm gonna at
Yeah.
least respect that. I mean, hey, this is what we thought. This is why it didn't work out this way.
Mhm.
We were wrong.
Yeah.
You know what, that would ease again. Mistakes happen.
Yeah.
Going sideways happens. Like we talked about, don't fall in love with an outcome.
Mhm.
But if I understand that you've gone sideways because things changed, that's a lot easier to explain when you acknowledge you're wrong.
Yeah.
Not so easy to explain when you're not going to take any culpability for it.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh yeah, I agree with everything you're saying. Yeah, there were definite breakdowns in communication and relaying the information through the media, through any means, really. And then you start getting the people who start thinking, how can I make money off of this? So what do I need to say that's going to be the thing that'll make the most money for me off of this, whether it's true or not? I don't care.
Mhm.
I'm going to make money off of it, and then you start getting those things piled on top of the what should be good information, for the most part on some levels, and then it's that idea of now let's make money off of this,
Mhm.
whether it's government or whether it's private sector, whatever. Um,
A
and I
a
think that's where also the breakdowns start to happen,
Oh,
because people
sure.
start seeing things that are not um, factual, but then start believing it because it's on the internet. The internet, what doesn't lie, right? It's
Yeah.
perfectly,
Or
perfectly,
or
perfectly. Yeah, it's the internet.
and not just the internet, on TV too. Like,
TV,
let's be
yeah. TV doesn't
fair.
lie. It was on
Yeah,
TV. It's got to be true, right?
yeah,
Yeah, I saw it on
yeah,
Facebook. It's got to be true.
yeah. But I mean, again, it adds up. It adds up. And like I said, there has acknowledging these things
Oh yeah,
as a mistake
100%.
would again, this is what in the past governments have done that.
Hmm.
They don't do that anymore. And so
Yeah.
that's a problem. And I think the media today is one of the biggest. Again, I almost don't like as far as that stuff goes. I don't even look at the media anymore.
Mm,
I actually what I decide this is what I decided to do. I decided to go to other countries that are farther along than we are and
mm,
seeing what's happening there.
yeah,
Because that makes sense to me. If it's happening there, it's probably going to happen here,
sure.
right?
Yeah.
And right, that's again the logic behind that is, well, they're human beings are essentially the same everywhere, and that's what I do.
Yeah.
So my conclusions aren't necessarily the popular ones, but and hey, let's be fair, I could be wrong, but at least I'm looking at the information and I can make an opinion,
Yeah.
right? You can debate me till I'm blue, and if you're looking at the same information and you're interpreting differently,
Mm.
great. I'll hear you out. If you're just coming at me with a narrative that I've heard ad nauseum for 18 months, I'm not going to take you seriously anymore. Because that,
Yeah. Well, and that's interpretation of whatever it is you're looking at. Also, can be radically
absolutely
different
no.
from person to person. Yeah.
Yeah, I like I said, I've had great I and I'm vaccine skeptic. I'm a very skeptical about the vaccine right now. But I've had some great conversations with some people who have looked at some of the same information and they've pointed some things out to me, right? And just like that's fair. And
Yeah.
some of it I acknowledge, some of it we agree to disagree, some of it they acknowledge. It's not a one-sided argument.
And I get people being worrisome about something that they don't quite 100% understand. It's funny to me how some people say they won't get the vaccine because they don't know what's in it. But you can go on the CDC website and you can see what's in it, and you can look up all the things and understand what vaccines do and how they do it. And I think that the issue for me is it's the people who yell the loudest about not getting the vaccine because they don't know what's in it. They don't want to put that in their bodies. They don't want to put something crazy or junky in their bodies. Are the first person that are going to eat 5 Twinkies for dinner.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You know
fair.
what I mean?
My,
Wait, you don't
so
know what's in
for
a Twinkie. You
yeah,
don't know what's in that
yeah, God,
protein
yeah. So
supplement. You don't know what's in a McDonald's cheeseburger. At least the vaccine is getting your body ready for something that could potentially harm it. Um,
my take is that my dad was a naturopath, and so I still remember this to this day, because this is just my perspective.
sure.
I remember one time a kid came in, he looked obese. He had taken an antidepressant. He was just recommended an antidepressant from a doctor.
Mhm,
It had damaged his pituitary gland, so he wasn't growing up anymore. He was
mhm,
growing like this,
yeah,
right? So he wasn't really obese. It's just that his pituitary gland was damaged,
sure.
right? I've seen opiates. I remember seeing a Oxycontin when it first came out. I remember seeing the first person that was demanding a fix because they actually got addicted to it.
Yeah.
I I have seen a fair share of medical injury
Mhm,
with stuff we have more knowledge of than what we have with this right now.
yeah.
And so my tendency, and this is where I'm coming from, I like waiting about 2 years because at about 2 years, you see what it does. Like there's no longer a question. You'll see the results. You'll start seeing if there are long-term side effects, you will start to see them.
Sure.
Because they're a lot more visible. And again, I'm coming from the perspective that I've seen my fair share of medical injury. It's not
Mm,
like I'm not saying yay, nay. If someone's going to come to me and say, I'm going to take it, great.
yeah.
Right. But I'm
Yeah.
not going to say don't do it. But what I am going to say is if you are like me, kind of skeptical for that reason, I get it. Like I totally do. And
Yeah.
yeah,
And
you know,
it's a person's choice to be able to get it or not. Nobody, I don't
yeah,
think I understand. Like I said, I understand. I try to be empathetic
yep.
with people who are skeptical about it 100%. I think that as long as um, if someone has decided not to do it, as long as they're taking steps to keep themselves and other people as safe as they can in that
Oh,
situation,
sure.
great.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No,
no
oh,
problem.
sure.
You have to have a level of empathy and a level of care for the other people around you because if you could get it and you just don't want to spread it, right? I'll be honest with you, I'm vaccinated. My wife
Sure.
is vaccinated. My kids are vaccinated, um, and I could still get it and could still pass it.
Yeah, that's right. No,
So
no,
trying to trying to be as careful as we possibly can, especially when it's still going. Our neighbor, I shouldn't be,
Yeah.
I'm not very not gonna say her name, but their name, that just got it, and they were not vaccinated, and got it, and I hope she's gonna be okay. I don't. I hope that person. Sorry, I keep saying
No, 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 no,
pronouns I shouldn't be.
listen, listen, she is fine. We're just, you just don't go past that. We're good. You
Yeah,
kind of, cat's out the
and my
bag, right?
hope is my hope is that everything is okay.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I really honestly hope it is. It's just for me, it's one of those things that if her body was a little more ready for that sickness with the vaccine, because that's what it does. It gets your body primed and ready for it, so that so it doesn't affect you as bad. If her body was ready for it, and she's not in the greatest, that person's not in the greatest health in the world. Hopefully everything will be fleshed out and everything will be fine in the next couple weeks. But it's really, it's just that
I,
level of care to be able to make sure, just wanting to make sure everybody's safe, right?
well,
Right.
so I think the biggest solution is where I don't think we're ever going to have a zero COVID situation. I don't think
Not
that's
anymore.
realistic. I
But
think everybody, I think most people that want to believe that still believe that. Like, I think on the pro side, those are the crazy ones. Like you like saying that the people are against it that are eating every Twinkie up and down. They're also the crazy ones. They're both, that's both extremes,
yeah,
right?
eat
As
an
both,
apple every once in a while, right?
yeah, right.
Just eat a
Yeah,
banana.
that's both extremes. I think here's the thing. I think if you are, I think this goes both ways. Um, you're gonna get COVID. You have to make a decision. I think everybody's going to at some point. I think that's just an
Probably.
inevitability. So you're gonna have to make a decision how you're gonna do it.
Mhm.
And I think that's everybody. That should be everybody's choice.
Mhm.
I think, like I said, I've seen what's gone on in other countries, so I have an idea how I think it's gonna kind of play out everywhere just based
Mhm.
on that. Um, so I just kind of look at it like things like for me, right? I kind of know what my risk of COVID is. Like I'm pretty healthy. Like I have a very low risk, right?
Yeah.
If I did get, if I might have even have already, for all I know, have already gotten it,
Yeah.
right? It's probably
Yeah.
is right. Um, so again, I'm weighing I understand that risk. For me, the other side, I don't fully understand that risk and I just want to be cautious while I do it. And that's my decision. You're
Yeah.
like, well, and you were the other way. You're like, you know what? The vaccine's going to help me. And I think COVID's the bigger risk. And I can
Yeah.
respect that. Right?
And being around, for me, it was also about, in my family, it was about being around people who could have been harmed,
Yeah.
that are susceptible
Yeah.
to having complications with it. Working in a school, I mean, there's a lot
Yeah.
of people that are over 55 years,
Yeah.
over 60 years, that you're coming to contact with on a daily basis, and I do not want that on my conscience. That I walked in not knowing I had something, and somebody got something and it did not go well for them. I don't. Any,
Basically, I think we both see it a little differently, but
yeah,
but at the same token, I get where you're coming. You're coming from this perspective. You want to do everything you think possible to do it, to do what's right. I can respect that. I'm like, I think I can without it.
yeah,
Same token,
yeah. It's like
whatever.
as long as people. I mean, that's fine.
Yeah,
Not fine. That's not fine. That's what I meant to say.
yeah.
Those choices are individuals to make. I 100% agree with you. And for me, it's just I've seen people who make that choice to not get the vaccine and then just don't care to pay attention to their own bodies and other people and be able to see what they're doing and how they could possibly be spreading it, on
Oh,
some level, and not
oh.
even understanding it, or not even knowing it. And to me, that's scary in the middle of a pandemic,
Well,
right?
like I said, everybody's got to do what they feel is right.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
like I said, I've just seen from my perspective, my own bias is I've just seen too much medical injury just to jump. But that's me. You're
Yeah.
like, I think the virus is scarier, and you know what? Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Common.
My wife and I did have long conversations about having the kids vaccinated. The long conversations, about what's right for, and that's an individual family choice. That's the parents' choice to be able to have that conversation, to be able to do what they think is right for their family and their kids. And I would never dream of ever taking away those choices from people, when it's such a personal and private choice.
I think on that one, I'd let the kids also make that choice as well.
Yeah.
I think honestly, I would let the.
Oh yeah.
I'm not a parent. again, I've looked again, my own opinion, I think kids are the lowest risk. This is just
Mhm.
my opinion. They are the lowest risk by far. So I would I again, I just like I would look at them and go, "Okay, this is the thing. I think
Yeah.
you got an incredibly low risk." Same t and I and that would be as like, I think you might have already had it, right? I mean, there's a lot like, you know how kids are at school.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it's like I like that one, again, for me again, me personally, again,
Mhm.
just my own proclivities, I'm a little bit gun shy about doing that to a kid, but again, I
Yeah.
also think this too.
Yeah.
It's a kid's choice. I think as
My
much as
son, my son came to me. He's 15. He came to
yeah,
us and said, "I want to do it." And
that's
we were
fair.
having
No,
my wife and I were
that's
having the conversation in between because he's had asthma, he's had croup, he's had
yeah, okay.
whooping cough, he's had all those things that are those respiratory things that could be a problem. So
Yeah,
when we were in the middle of having that conversation, this was probably a month, 2 months ago, probably right
mhm,
before school. We were having that conversation. I don't know if he heard us or he just had it in his brain already. Came to us and say, "Hey, what's going on with me and the vaccine?" And we said, well, "We don't know what." And we're like, he's like, "I think I want to get it." And we're like, "Okay, well, let's go
and
do it."
and and
My
and
daughter, we came to her, and she's like, "Oh, I don't know." I don't know what do I do? I'm like, well, let's continue talking about it. Let's continue making, and see what's right for my daughter because my daughter's not low. My daughter you could throw up in her mouth
she doesn't get sick.
every disease, and she'd be fine. She'd walk out, be like, well,
Yeah,
okay, great.
yeah, and you know what? And if she chooses to go the other way, that's fine too. I think that's a legitimate like, but I do think in that case, it's the kids should be able to have a say in what on that one, because they're the ones that are taking like if there is a risk, they're taking it
Yeah.
either way. So let them make a decision, and it's an adult decision, right?
I think being involved in the decision for the kids, especially, but I mean, 13 and up, that's old enough
Yeah,
to have a conversation and see what they want.
yeah,
And
yeah,
yeah,
yeah, and that's
yeah,
that's kind of how I
100%.
see it, right? That's me. Again, and if anyone, and by the way, folks, I am skeptical, but that all said, if you want to do it, I'm not going to tell you no. Right?
Do it. Do what's right for you.
Yeah.
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 While you're making sure you're being safe and being kind to everybody else. If you've ever screamed at a fast food 16-year-old fast food worker on the other side of the counter then you're in the wrong camp. Then you're making bad choices.
Yeah.
don't scream
I
at don't
no,
scream at restaurant workers. They do not deserve it. They're
no,
children who are trying to make burgers for you. Be cool.
well, they're people trying to make burgers for you, and they're people that if they had their way wouldn't be doing any of this crap. They'd be like, honestly, I just want to make a burger and go home. Leave
Yeah,
me
I
alone.
just I just want to buy money for get money for gas to drive my car
Yeah.
around.
Yeah.
Please stop screaming at me.
No, I just think the important thing in a time like this, like honestly, is does come down to kindness and just
Oh yeah.
respecting everybody's choices, whatever those choices are,
Mhm.
right? And because we all have re- we all have reasons. Not all of them are good. I'm going to be honest. Not all of them are the best reasons, but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, I mean, I could be wrong. I,
I think too, one
yeah,
thing that comes into it is how much if those individual choices, which are super important, if those individual choices could negatively affect another person, if, inadvertently or not, you know what I mean? I think that's a conversation, I mean, we don't have that right now, but a super important conversation to have also if those choices, whatever those choices are, about anything in life, if it could negatively affect somebody else, then I think that's something that needs to be taken into consideration also in those kind of decisions about anything in life.
I,
So for me, that was something that I really took into consideration also in our scenario in our situation.
ooh, I do want to have a discussion with this, but let's throw the vaccine stuff out because honestly, I think if we throw that out, I think this will be a much better conversation than
Oh
right. Um, it's a balance, isn't it?
yeah,
Because if you do, this is what I have found. If you do so much, if it's about your duty to everything you ask, that can descend into something incredibly hateful in a very different way. It's like, well, why didn't you do this? Right.
yeah,
And like, right, there might be legitimate reasons why people aren't making those choices.
mhm,
Right. Maybe like it's a health risk, or maybe it's something they just can't do for their own, like there's a reason or good reason for it. on the flip side, we do live in a society, and one of the things about that is like we all compromise on some level, and if there's no compromise,
Mhm.
nothing gets done.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for those kind of things, like pick any social, political issue, pick one. It
Yeah,
doesn't matter.
yeah,
Um, both sides are um, guilty of seeing it from the wrong perspective. Whatever, pick it. Doesn't matter.
yeah,
No
yeah.
matter what it is. And not again is that empathy for the other side of the coin, and
Mhm.
saying, man, if I was in that situation, how would I feel if somebody came up and did that to me,
Mhm.
or if trying to make it as vague as possible.
Well, yeah,
But
because
yeah,
it's not just about any one thing, because this is a bigger. I think this is,
yeah.
again, just one of those come to Jesus things we're gonna have to talk about in the next few years anyway.
Yeah.
So
In every situation, I mean, it's got to be situational too, right?
yeah,
Every situation is different. You could have something that's about the same ideology or political or socioeconomic issue or whatever it is, but and it could be for two people with a similar situation, two people with similar situation, but they're still separate situations. So each individual situation is always going to have those little things about them that make them completely different, to where you might react differently in a similar situation because of one or two little aspects that are different about it. And and that's what makes it tricky. That's what makes it so difficult. While trying to legislate these things um, can be almost impossible.
I
So it's makes it difficult to be able to try to, for some people who think they're doing the right thing or think they're on the right side of an issue, but to try to legislate something that is a personal issue for other people can be tricky, can be a slippery slope, right?
I think so. I'm gonna ask it a question like this, just as an interesting one. Do you think something like that should be legislated? And I ask that for this reason,
Mhm,
because every situation is different.
mhm.
If you and I are, again, I get this impression we agree about some things we've talked about, we disagree about other things.
Yeah, of
Either way, though, we have been incredibly civil about it,
course.
right?
Yeah,
You and I probably in both those situations, and the situation we disagree with,
mhm.
could find a compromise
Yeah,
on our own without anybody interfering, right?
yeah,
And because right, I think this is just me. I think by and large, this is where I think small government is the best.
mhm.
Is when you and I have a disagreement. I think the government should only interfere when you and I can't come to it, or somebody like that should interfere. Is when you and I can't come to an agreement,
Yeah.
right?
Some sort
Yeah,
of governing body that can
y-
say, okay, now we've got this issue that we can't reach a conclusion. Let's all put our heads together and let's figure out the best
yeah,
solution
yeah.
moving forward.
But if it's just you and me, like you and me, right? And then we can say, I bet, and I just said, I bet you we could find a compromise.
Yeah,
And you'd be like, I can do that. And I'd be like, okay, that's fair. And I think you and I would keep our words. Now, not everybody would do that, and that's fair. But I think more often than not, given that situation, most people would keep their word,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
I, I,
You
I,
would, you would
I
hope. You would
well,
hope.
I think it's high. I think that's a higher percentage than people that wouldn't. I think it is a higher percentage. And again, that's what you bring the governing body in for. Whatever compromise is agreed to, it's enforced.
I think when it starts to um, take them off their game plan. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When it starts to give them, make them think that they are somehow being wronged now, even though it might not have anything to do with them, for whatever the issue is. If they start feeling like they're being wronged or they're being persecuted, when to them they feel that way, but it might not be the actual case that they're being persecuted, then I think that's where people start to kind of lose sight of the ball, right? They kind of tend to drop the ball from time to time on that
Mhm.
because they think, oh my gosh, now I'm the one being persecuted. When they're not being persecuted, it's just all kind of starting to become equal ground, right? And that equal ground to somebody who's had higher ground their entire life can feel like persecution, right?
So yeah, so I think the important thing there though too, you gotta let them have those feelings out.
Yeah.
Because because when you bottle that shit,
Mhm.
that leads to dark places. Right or wrong, people feel the way they feel for
Yeah.
whatever reason. And the fact of the matter is, if you want to change people's minds and hearts,
Mhm.
you gotta let people feel like what they say matters.
Yeah.
If you don't, if you take that away,
Mhm.
they're always going to resent it, even if they are wrong,
Mhm. Yeah.
because you took away the one thing they really wanted,
Mhm.
right? And that's again, it's a tricky balance,
Mhm.
but at the same time, like I said, fundamentally speaking, we're all the same.
Yeah.
As long as your opinion's heard, as long as you feel like you had a say in how things worked out,
Mhm.
you're okay with it. By
Yeah.
and large, even if it doesn't work out quite the way you envisioned it, you're like, I had my say, I had my day in court, I mentioned my piece,
Mhm.
I was outvoted, I was whatever, but I was heard and I was respected.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, and I think that's why this kind of discourse is so important. I think, people say, "Oh, you shouldn't talk about, religion or politics or money or whatever it is." And I can't disagree more. I think these are the things we need to talk about, because the more you talk about it, the more you can come to a common ground and see that your viewpoints aren't as different as you think they are. They just maybe are coming from a different place. And I think that, just like you said, if someone's feelings, someone uh, perceives that their feelings aren't being paid attention to, or that their feelings about that situation aren't being listened to, and they're not being listened to, they'll easily double down
Yeah,
and
no,
triple down and quadruple
absolutely.
down. And then and then they can never let go. Even if they got to a point where, like, oh my gosh, I took this way too far, they'll never admit that they were wrong, especially once they've doubled and tripled down. So having somebody who might be on, an opposite side of a debate than you, the worst thing you can do is tell them that their feelings don't matter. Now, then you start getting into those feelings aren't facts situation, kind of debate kind of situation.
But but the thing is, we're human beings. So like
Yeah,
something we got to understand.
yeah,
By definition, we're both crazy. In the sense that how we see reality isn't necessarily
yeah.
how reality works.
And it's
So
completely different for both of us,
yeah, absolutely.
for all of
Right?
us.
Because different concerns, different things. So here's the thing. Yeah, feelings are going to be part of this.
Yeah.
And they don't need to be factual. They're
Hmm.
there. And it's true in any conversation.
Yeah,
So instead of going, well, they don't matter. No, just get them out.
yeah.
Just get it over
Tell,
with.
tell me
Yeah.
what you got.
Yeah.
Why are you feeling this way? Let's talk about it. Let's
Yeah.
discuss it. Let's understand why you feel this way, and hopefully you can understand why I feel, or the two people arguing, why they feel the way they feel, and we can again start to reach that common ground.
Yep.
That I don't think people, well, in the last 20 years, haven't don't do that anymore. They're too busy screaming at each other. The loudest person wins,
Well,
unfortunately, and
it,
that's not the way it should be.
it's
Uh,
funny because I've been on the opposite side of the fence of several guests like you about some things.
mhm.
They've all ended peacefully and amicably because
Yeah,
talking and listening.
yeah,
Now it's not hard.
yeah. I think one thing also is that the listening part. Too often, people are just waiting for their turn to talk, and you'll be talking to them about your feelings and what you think is going on, and then they'll answer back with something completely unrelated to what it is you're talking about, and you can tell when people are just kind of waiting. Okay, they're still talking. Okay, I'm gonna
Well,
wait until they're done talking, and then I'm gonna say my thing,
yeah,
and then I'm gonna keep saying my thing, and then they're gonna start talking again. So I'll just zone out, and I'll just
yeah.
wait until it's my turn again to talk. And I think that's a big problem. I think that that active listening is an art form that has been lost. Not for everybody, of course, but for a good chunk of people that or don't care to listen. They're like, I don't care. You can tell me anything, and it's not going to change my mind. You could throw all the evidence and facts and whatever it is in front of me, but okay. And that's
Mm.
and as long
Eh,
as it doesn't affect anybody else negatively, great. believe your thing. Do your thing. It's okay.
Well, they're going to anyway, whether it harms or doesn't. That's just it. Like that's the reality there.
Yeah.
I right. It just is. I mean, we
Yeah.
gotta be. We got. I mean, in a perfect world, but the fact is, everything we do has consequence.
Yeah. 100%.
I just think this is what I think. I think the art of compromise is
Hmm.
very much a thing, and for the last 20 years, we've been taught that compromise is weakness. It's far
Hmm.
from it. It actually strengthens us
Yeah.
because we see different perspectives. We
Yeah.
look at things with a fuller picture,
Hmm.
and we can address concerns.
Yeah.
And like I said, both sides of the equation we mentioned earlier, zero COVID isn't happening. At the same token, I don't necessarily going to listen to somebody that just eats Twinkies all day. Right? I
Yeah.
mean, that
Yeah.
it goes both ways.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah.
I think, like I said, so as long as we don't go down a path of complete batshit insanity of we're going to do this no matter what,
Mhm.
we're going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's when that stops and that happens, then when a country goes down that road, railroads it completely. I don't care which side of the equation you're on that one. It's
Yeah.
not going to end well. It's just not. Right?
Yeah, when one ideology or one ism starts
Mhm.
to take over and say that theirs is the way and the only way, and let's do it this way, I think that's when you get into problems. I think any ism or ideology, exactly, any idiom or any ideology or any ism is going to have positive and negatives.
Mhm.
It's about, for me anyway, in my skewed view, it's about recognizing the positive, the negatives, taking out what's going to work, and throwing out what's not going to work, and combining. It
Mhm.
doesn't need to be all this or nothing, or all that or nothing, or get that out of there. We're never doing that. It's let's figure out what works, and let's find that salad bowl of ingredients that's going to
Yeah.
make it work for everybody, and
Yeah.
it's going to give everybody the best chance to be able to succeed and to grow and to be the best people we can.
Yeah.
I think we really are on the precipice on some level, and this is going to sound a little nutty, I guess. The precipice of, when we were growing up, and they talked about the future, you had two versions. You had Gone to Hell, or you had Paradise, right? Essentially, those are the two choices you had when they talked about the future. And I think that we could get to either of them, taking the right or the wrong turns. But I think that, really, quite honestly, the the chance to have it work for everybody is right there. It's
Mhm.
right there. They're just people who get in the way, who don't, or seemingly don't want it to work for everybody, or want their thing to be the top thing and everybody else underneath.
So
Right?
do you want to hear my batshit crazy idea?
Please,
My complete batshit
let's
crazy.
hear it.
So you and I are thousands of miles apart, but let's say pretend for the sake of argument. Let's say we had another 20 people in here. I never do a show like that because honestly there would be just it would be just pure chaos.
Yeah.
But let's just say for the sake of argument that there were 20 people here from across the country
Hmm.
just talking and we had a similar like mindset and just for the sake of argument.
Hmm.
Is that not a community?
Hmm.
Right? That's a community,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Let's go. Let's add some other crazy stuff to this. Now, let's say we all did this hypothetically. We all met these different. Everybody finds these communities, these niches that we feel like we belong to. Okay, from a more traditional standpoint, why would we need a government? We have cryptocurrency. We no longer need a banking system. We
Hmm.
have social media has a lot of toxic shit to it, no doubt. But
Hmm.
at the same time, you can find a lot of really cool information there if you're willing to
There's
look.
positives. There's
Yeah,
positives.
yeah,
Yeah.
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 So here's the thing: do you need a mainstream media anymore?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We have and I think, and I'm going back to publishing for a second. Publishing, I think, got there first. Actually, ironically enough,
Mm-hmm.
mainstream publishing is a niche. Think
Mm-hmm.
about that for a second. DC, Marvel, Image, Boom, they're still important, But if you look at them from the grand scheme of things, they are a teeny tiny piece of a pie that's getting bigger all the time.
Yeah.
Comic books are in a renaissance right now. Like they
Yeah.
literally have gone the way of the renaissance. Books like yours are great. Book
Mhm.
and you're seeing so many talented people doing amazing things that have nothing to do with the big two or any mainstream comics. And again, this isn't saying there isn't good mainstream comic books. I mentioned it. Like, this is a great book. This is
Mhm.
fucking fantastic.
Mhm.
But it's no longer the only way to make a career in the industry. There are other ways of doing it. Same with everything else. Technology has made it where you and I and everybody else can literally reimagine how we do things, everything from how we work. Now, again, you still need police, you're going to still need a military, you're going to still need some infrastructure. We can't
Yeah.
completely escape that. But
Sure.
if you sit there and think about what has come before and what is coming now,
Mhm.
I truly think we are at the end of what I call the industrial age.
Mhm.
I think the battle of the next few years is is the system as we know it is going extinct.
Mhm.
What you and I and everybody else really need to ask ourselves is what do we want to take its place?
Mhm.
Because that is the real question. We have more ability to do that now than ever before. Like I said, a community of 20 hypothetically could buy land somewhere
Mhm.
and start a city overnight. I'm not saying that like this is the only way to do it. This
Mhm.
is just a thought. This is just a thought experiment,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
But if you sit there and look around, the old paradigms don't matter as much as they used to. I just think what I think personally is people haven't fully realized it yet. Now, this is my crazy thought,
Mhm.
but I think I'm either on something or I'm onto something. I'll let you make the decision on that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm gonna have to give more thought about whether you're onto something or on something. I'm gonna have
Yeah,
to give more
yeah,
thought.
yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
yeah. Yeah, go. Sorry.
well, I think that yeah, I think that we are getting to a point where people are starting to realize that government is bloated.
Mhm.
Any government at
Yeah,
this point, I think, is bloated. It keeps just piling itself on top of itself, on top of itself, on top of itself until you realize that's part of the problem, or it is the problem on some level. It's supposed to be, in the United States, so they use the phrase "for the people, by the people." I don't know if they have a similar phrase in Canada,
they don't.
um, but it's um, but it's definitely looked on as a separate thing. Our representatives are not looked at as people, our neighbors. They're looked at as separate. They're up there. They're on the hill. They're doing their thing. I hope they do the right thing, but I don't have any control over that. And I think that's a problem. I think one of the biggest problems with that is because that is a problem because we don't have term limits. Like, it should be a revolving door of people, so you keep getting more ideas and fresh views and fresh ideas and fresh people. You're going to get some crazies in there, you're going to get some people that make mistakes in there from time to time, but having people who are in government professionally for 50 years, I think it's a major problem. Just like our president is 8 years at the most. But there's really no other. There's a couple other places where there's term limits. But for the most part, it's people who've been sitting in the cabinet for 50 years doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results, or doing the same thing over and over again because they don't want different results, because they want to keep it the same way.
Absolutely.
Is one of the biggest problems with governments, knowing that they're just going to spend, and it's going to be spent all in the wrong places. That's not going to help people. That's not going to get foods in children's bellies. That's not going to get people in clothes and in housing. That's not going to get people um, uh, in learning how to read better or getting educated in whatever way they want to be educated. And I think that's the problem with government. Bloated. They're too bloated.
I,
Too many Twinkies.
way too many Twinkies. I actually, your current president is one of the best examples of it. He's
Mm.
been in politics since my dad was a kid.
Yeah, yeah,
That is frightening when you really sit there and think about that. That's frightening,
yeah.
right? You
Yeah, I
know,
agree, and I think that any Democrat will tell you that most Democrats, and I can't speak for all Democrats. I'm not even going to tell you if I am a Democrat or not. But I think that a good amount of Democrats, when I hear them talk about it, is that Sleepy Joe wasn't the first choice,
no,
but he happened to be the choice that got the ticket. They got on the ticket, and it happened to work out for the Democrats in this one. Who knows what's going to happen in where are we? 3 years. Who knows
I,
what's going to happen? You know,
y- y- y-
um,
oh Joe, yes, oh Joe. But anyways,
we'll
yeah,
see. We'll see. And has Joe been a perfect president? No. What president has?
no,
Every president's made mistakes. For me, um, I think that one of the biggest things that I keep hearing from Republicans and Democrats is they talk about where there doesn't seem to be any support for Joe from the Democrats. There's no banners, there's no signs, there's no hats, there's no flags, there's no any of that. You'll never find Democrats doing that because if they don't like what Joe's doing, they're the first ones to kick him out. Get out. And I think that's on the Republican side, it's too much of hero
they're a
worship.
gang.
Hero worship.
They're a gang. The Democrat.
Mm, yeah, there's
So
other words that I think have been used, and I won't use them.
no, no.
Um, but I agree. I think it's kind of a blind following of a certain person group of people that that does not care about them, and for a group to completely vote against their own interests continuously, constantly vote against their own interests to me is confusing. And I have very, very liberal ideas and very conservative ideas. I think I'm right down the middle.
Most people
Um,
are, honestly.
yeah, most people are.
Yeah.
But for people to not only vote against their own interests repeatedly, consistently, but to rail against any idea of policies that might make their life better or easier or more productive is really difficult for me to swallow sometimes.
So, hmm. Outside looking in, this is how this is. And I lived in the States. I voted in the States too when I was
Sure.
living there. So this is my take on both parties.
Yeah.
I think the Republicans are almost like a gang that work together for a common goal, good
Hmm.
and bad. They have a certain predictability to them, and I can see to some degree where the appeal is with that. You have an idea where they stand. You don't agree with everything they stand for, but they at least look organized.
Yeah.
The Democrats, I think this is what I think about the Democrats. I think in principle, their most of their ideals are solid. I think though they have the potential to be the cooler of the two parties out though,
Mm-hmm.
because I think they're the ones most likely, right, to go, we believe this is absolutely the correct way to go, and they won't care.
Mm-hmm.
All right, this is my opinion. I could be totally wrong about
Sure.
Lord knows Republicans have done some things. I'm sure people would mention that, be like that are terrible, and I would be the first to agree.
Mm-hmm.
Right? But it's one of those things where I look at both parties as your flaws are you're caught in values that I'm not sure. And I'm going to say this probably values I'm not sure are relevant today.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And while your values I think are a little closer to today, when you go off the deep end, then this is what I said. When you go off the deep end, you really go off the deep end.
All in.
And
Yeah.
yeah, and you like you're actually oddly more extreme than the Republicans, and that's impressive and frightening at the same time, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
because I'm not saying the Republicans aren't extreme because they are, but
Mm-hmm.
I do think the tendency to go overboard is actually on the other end of that spectrum. So I look at both parties and I'm like, I really wish you guys had something else, like
A
anything
third
else.
party would be a third, fourth,
Yeah.
fifth, sixth party would be 5 parties. I think is a good number because then you get a good span of right.
Yeah.
If you have somebody that run like say this next election that say Joe runs again and Donnie John runs again, and then they have somebody run right in the right in the middle. It's if that person that runs right in the middle, that third party candidate, is leans more Republican, they're just going to siphon off all the Trump votes, and Joe's going to win. If the third party leans more to the left, they're just going to siphon off all the votes from Joe, and Don's going to win. It doesn't help. It doesn't help the situation.
If you
But
guys,
having at least like five, uneven number, five people in there that could potentially get the job done for whatever reason, I think is just a better way to be able to do it. Just one or two, black or white, eeny meeny miny mo, doesn't help anybody. Doesn't work.
I'm just gonna say, if Donald Trump versus Joe Biden is the ticket for the next election, I'm going to let me know what beer you like. I'll send you some. I'll say I'm sorry because
I will.
I
I will
don't
need
I
a lot of it. I will need a
no
lot of it.
no I at
Yeah.
that point I at that point I wouldn't know what to tell you. I'd be
Yeah.
like,
It'd be
dude,
difficult. I think, yeah, I think too with I talk to a lot of Republicans. I try really hard to be able to see both sides of situations. I try really hard to. And for me, one thing that I keep hearing from Republicans, a lot of Republicans, and I don't see this as from Democrats as much. And if people disagree with me, please tell me. I'd love to hear it. That there are a lot of Republicans that are one issue voters.
mm-hmm.
They have one issue that they care about. Everything else, who cares? They have one issue that they vote about, and they vote for the candidate that agrees with them on that issue. And you could probably take a good guess on what that issue would be. It might be different. It might be different than the one I'm thinking of, but whatever that one issue that the people are thinking of, it's probably right. I think that more Republicans and Democrats are one issue voters. Whether that's good or bad, I don't know. I personally think that having a broad range, and of course I don't understand everything. I'm just an art teacher from upstate New York, but having a broad range of understandings and understanding the policies and why they're doing it is helpful. But I think a lot of people don't dive deeper into it. Like universal healthcare is. I mean, go to the hospital, get your medicine, leave.
Oh, we don't have enough time to talk about your healthcare system. We don't.
It's tough. It's tough, yeah.
Well, no, I'm going to be honest. It's the cruelest system I have ever seen.
Coolest?
Cruelest.
Coolest.
Yeah, by far. It is the coolest system I have ever seen. I would almost burn it down and build it all over again. That's how bad. Again, I've seen in my own fair history of medical injury. And one of the things that's a very common story in your culture is I will see somebody take a pill and then suddenly a few months later take 3 pills, then maybe on 5 pills. And then some of these pills are dealing with the side effects from some of the other pills. That is, to me, abject cruelty.
Yeah.
Someone coming in with a legitimate issue, asking for help, and now is paying for these drugs that might cause other issues down the road is a common thing. It's super common in your country.
I 100% agree with you. Yeah, these commercials, come get Flacanac.
Yeah.
It'll cure your psoriasis, but it'll also give you cancer. So which one do you want, psoriasis or cancer?
Yeah, no.
It doesn't make any sense to me. I think that they're reeling in the medical what's that called, the medical industry, to be able to not to not make so much money off of, making money. There's nothing wrong with making money, but doing it off the backs of the people that are the workforce and the people who are spending the money on your product, I think is the height of I was about to say evil, but that's the wrong word. The height of cruelty. I'll use your word, cruelty.
Yeah, no, it's cruel. I don't know how anyone could argue otherwise. I don't. If you have an argument, ladies and gentlemen, I'd love to hear it because I've never seen anything like it in my life.
No, I agree with you.
Yeah.
My grandfather used to say that you can have a perfect scenario, you can have a perfect plan about anything. The best way to get that plan have that plan screw up is put people in charge of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, we're talking about a universal basic income up here, right? That's good and in theory, it's not a bad idea. It's not a bad idea in theory. Again,
Yeah.
going back to what you just said, though, it comes down to the people that execute it. If
Yeah.
they're good people with a good the intent's important, but also the impact.
Mhm.
I don't want someone on a universal basic income that's all they make,
Yeah.
because that's not good either, right? You want it there so that people never go to the streets. It's better for everybody if that's the case.
Mhm.
That's the real intention.
Yeah.
But you also want to have a room where people can get out of the system and do other things, because that's
Yeah.
the only way we grow.
Yeah.
So there's again, and so in Canada, that's going to probably come to a fruition sooner than later.
Mm.
That's just one of our issues.
Yeah.
That's the position I'm hoping we really look at hard before we jump head in, because a lot of people are going to go, yes, universal basic income. And I'm going to be like, yes, but
Yeah.
how is this going to work? Because the last thing, again, you can turn anything like, okay, your healthcare system could, and if you have money, it is the best healthcare system in the world. If you
Yeah.
have money,
Yeah.
right? But so figuring out how to take that and give access to everybody. So
Mhm.
you go in for anything from fixing your teeth to pulling a gallbladder to having cancer to anxiety, depression.
Yeah.
It's like making medicine that doesn't actually exploit somebody, or, my surgery doesn't cost six figures.
Mhm.
These are things that I think almost everybody would agree are good ideas.
Yeah.
I don't think there's a person alive. What you guys have to what the world has to come to accept is on as far as the States goes, the States has two industrial complexes,
Mhm.
unfortunately. The military, which is an old one, and unfortunately the pharmaceutical is the
Mhm.
other one. And those
Yeah.
are the biggest two you have. And you have to be very aware that they exist, right? And that so understanding that is a very big key, understanding how to change the world. You have to understand why it's broken.
Mhm.
So like, again, a universal basic healthcare system is a great idea for you, desperately needed. Who's running it? Because if it's the guys currently in charge, yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I 100% agree with you. Yeah, it comes down to who's going to implement it and how it's going to be implemented and what laws do they make, and then what loopholes are people going to start flinging in there to be able to say, oh, if I put this little loophole in here, then I can make $1 million a week. So let's do that. Is anybody going to know? Anybody going to know? Nobody's going to. Even if they do know, it's completely legal. We're the ones making the laws. So
Yeah, like
yeah.
I said, we had a very interesting. We went from superheroes to like really really deep dives here,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I think good discussions on this. I think this is the most politically friendly discussion. Like I said, I don't think we fully agree on everything, but I don't think it matters, right?
No,
Because
no, you'll never have two people that my wife and I love each other more. I would take a bullet for my wife. We don't agree on everything. It's okay.
Mhm,
Yeah. No two people are ever going to agree on everything, and that's okay.
mhm. No, it's cool.
Yeah.
And Doris, I never vote along party lines either. Just to answer your question, and I have I do have like some big issues myself when I always look at a candidate. Like I mentioned, some of them I've mentioned already. If you can read between the lines, and again, I think everybody shows their cards in their sleeves. You just gotta pay really good attention.
Yeah.
But again, understand everybody's got different needs. I'm a single freelancer that can kind of do whatever the hell he wants.
Mhm.
Dave's a teacher with kids and comic book world domination plans, and but also like he's not just like he's looking more out for his community because he's a teacher and teachers give a shit about that stuff and it's important, right? And
I
that's
wish I could
fair.
see Doris's comments. I can't see her comments. I'm gonna have to go back in and
Yeah.
check out some of the comments she's made. I'm
Yeah,
interested. I wish I could
yeah,
see
yeah,
them.
yeah. So I'm trying to answer. She basically said when we talked about politics, I have three and never vote along party lines, is what she said when we were talking about
Yeah.
the one party thing.
Well, here's an issue too, real quick, because I know we're wrapping up here. But there were people who were saying that whether they were registered Democrats or rather registered Republicans, and some people were registered. I've heard people who register as independent, which I guess you can't do anymore. And I was asking people, oh, that's interesting. Why are you registered as independent? They're like, because I don't want to be stuck voting for a Republican or stuck voting for a Democrat. And I said, well, what do you mean? And they said, well, if you're registered as a Democrat, you have to vote Democrat. Or if you're registered as a Republican, you have to vote Republican. And I said, no, no, you don't. I've been registered the same political party since I was 18 years old, and I voted on all party lines for every party throughout my million years of voting. And I think there are a lot of people out there who don't understand that you don't. If you're a registered Republican, that doesn't mean you have to vote Republican. They don't put your name on your ballot. they
So
don't. They don't know. They're not tracking you. And if that was the case, why would we bother voting? They would just go by how many people were registered as Republicans or
and
Democrats.
the endorsed comment is can't anymore. Oh, F that lol. Yeah, but no, so the last thing I'm going to mention is the vote itself. I don't see. I don't believe in like make any votes a throwaway, even if you don't vote for any of the parties. I've always been of the impression that a vote's an opportunity to state your voice.
Sure.
And if you state that you don't like either party, that's fine. Like I'm not right. That if that's what you want to say, I think that's an important thing that should be not necessarily counted more per se, but should be noted as well, because that's, I mean, that also tells you how much in line the leaders are with the people. There's so many people that are in that gray area of fuck you guys, for lack of a better term.
Yeah.
Right. Then maybe we should have a reevaluation of the guys that are running for president. Like I said, dear God, I hope that those two are not your candidates in 2024.
I 100% agree with new blood. I 100% agree with that. Getting people in that have fresh ideas and have empathy and understand the 21st century and that we are in it would be amazing. And I think that I think it's coming. I think hopefully we'll see a nice little revolution in a very peaceful way of candidates coming in from both sides of the aisle that'll have a little bit better understanding of the needs of the future. And I would say that to anybody who says that they they're not sure about who they want to vote for whatever party, my what I always try to do is try to find the candidate that's going to do the best good for the most amount of people. And that might not be me. It might not be specifically me and my group of people, but the candidate that's going to do the best for the most amount of people. And that's who I vote for.
Mm-hmm. So before we wrap up, so when are you launching your issue 17? Like is there a date you got planned?
It should. I'm not giving a date because I'm really working really hard to get it out at the last week of October. So the Wednesday, the last week of October, I believe it's like the 26th, 27th, something like that. But I'm not giving a date because I, with 2 kids and a wife and a full-time job, I'm working my butt off on it. But it might be the first week of November. But I'm going to try to get out because my plan is to get 17 out in October and then have another one shot out by a great writer. And I can talk more about that when we do our drink and draw.
Yeah, sure.
By a great writer who actually has edited some books for me. He's got a great story, real fun story, real different, something I've never read anything like it. So I'm going to try to get that one shout out either right before the new year or right after the new year. So somewhere in that span. I can usually get a black and white one shot out in about a month. So I'm hoping that issue 17 of the Offspring out in next week. And then another one shot out before the new year. And all my volumes of all the issues that I have and my omnibus collecting issues 1 through 13 are up on my website, correcthandedcomics.com. You can find links to everything.
Yeah, it'd be really, really cool. So can you please your website one more time?
correcthandedcomics.com.
Spell that because I'm terrible.
Correct-handed. So CORRECT, handed, no hyphen, no spaces or anything. HANDED.
Yep.
Comics.
Comics.com?
.com.
All right. So I just put that up there for people to actually do that. No, like that was the beautiful thing about Restream. You could see the comments yourself and respond to them accordingly. No, dude, I always enjoy talking to you. It's again, I enjoy the differences. I love the fact that we go from goofy shit like comics to we talked some heavy shit to this time too, which is kind of cool.
I enjoy talking with you too, Joshua. I really appreciate you having me on. I really appreciate being able to talk about this too many times, these kind of conversations, and then people screaming at each other. And it's fun. It's nice to be able to just sit and talk about these things and solve all the world's problems.
Or at the very So I'm going to wrap up with this thought for the whole thing. The important thing about we're not going to agree on everything in this world. We all see the world differently.
Yeah,
The important thing is, again, I mentioned this earlier about the importance of letting emotions out, ladies and gentlemen. And that's this. Everybody really, what really people really want is to be understood.
mm,
And they want to feel like what they say matters. And if you give people that,
yeah,
shit, we can disagree what color the sky is. It doesn't really matter at that point. People
sure.
got what they want. Respect. That's a really, I mean, it's a simple thing, but
Yeah.
just a thought.
Always keeping in mind doing the least harm and doing the best good.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I can definitely agree with that. So, anyways, folks, that wraps up today's episode of Just Joshing. I have a really fun guest, a first time guest on Thursday. And then Friday, I got Anvu and Mont Park, and I'm probably dead, but that's okay. In like the best possible way. It's going to be a fun one. But to everybody watching, everybody listening, thanks for doing that. I appreciate my sponsors. Ronnie Fikes Roadkill Rampage is launching tomorrow. It's gonna be a fun one. I'm gonna be doing something a little special tomorrow. When on my blog and stuff, just for them. On top of that, Golem by PD Aliva is out now, available now. Definitely check them out. Jenna Green's Wiggers, the Well Dressed Wombat comes out November 8th. And that's for me. There's my channel. Just Joshing, which is on Twitch, twitch.tv/Just Joshing Podcast. Hit the like, follow button. My YouTube channel is Joshua Pantelleresco. Click like, follow, subscribe. Let me get ahead of Nita and Meredith so I can actually get them to draw zombie penguins for me. That'd be kind of cool. Alice 1 will be out December 1st. Alice 0 is nominated for the Elgin Award this year. So thanks everybody for that. And beyond that, stay inspired, keep shining in the dark, and I'll see you guys Thursday.